That practice began with Jewish farmers in the field. They would offer God the very first harvest, or 10% of the yield, in order for them to make their whole crop holy, to have God bless it. It's where we get the term the tithe, or 10%. Now, many people think that tithing financially is crazy or irresponsible. Mary and I decided to tithe. And I got to tell you, it brings us great joy. At the beginning of the year, we figure out how we can, through our financial means, make a difference in repairing the brokenness of the world. So this year, we're sponsoring a child in Africa, some environmental causes, sponsoring the school as well as the church. And yet something happened in the moment of offering, of tithing, of taking that on, that surprised us. What we came into the awareness of through our tithing is the understanding that we're not in control of our life, and that this is really God's world. And that is a place where you can kind of relax and let go and trust that whatever we're doing is really going to be enough. Lastly, the practice of Christian service, by offering ourselves in care and hospitality to others, yields to wisdom and understanding. And there's a story, I think, a few months ago that I shared with you about the shelter program that I was involved in San Mateo. And last week I told you the genesis of that program. It was a story about our volunteer who was heading the shelter program at Transfiguration, and she was directing all of we were housing 3 to 5 families. She was directing and coordinating that program for us. And she came to me after the week and she said to me, Channing, I need to tell you that when I came in on Wednesday to volunteer, I was filled with resentment. I mean, I had to move mountains in my life in order to be here. And yet when I left after volunteering, I realized how blessed I was. It was in the process of offering herself to the care of others that yielded to this wisdom. Wisdom and love, wisdom and generosity, wisdom and caring for others go hand in hand. Through these Christian practices, I believe that we begin to embody, we begin to get an understanding of what John's gospel calls when he says, "In him was life, and the life was the light of all people." Frequently, by doing something to unstick ourselves or change our practice, do we come to a greater understanding. Not always with our mind. Cynthia Burgo tells a story. It's wonderful. She tells a story about a young man who's frustrated in his faith. He thinks the theology of the church is somewhat magical. And as he says the creeds, he just gets more angry. So he goes to this archbishop, and the archbishop is famous for giving spiritual direction and wisdom. And he tells his story, and the bishop listens carefully and kindly. He tells a story about how he doesn't understand the faith, how he's angry with a sense of the statement that we make on Sunday. But you know what? He deeply wants to have a life of faith. So the archbishop thought to himself, and he gave a kind of a surprising response. He said, "I want you to go home, and for a month I want you to adopt a practice of doing 100 full body prostrations a day." Now, a prostration is when you stand up on your feet and you go to laying a full prone position with your chest on the ground and making the sign of the cross, remaining there for a breath, and then getting up and back to a standing position. It's kind of like if you've done yoga, our sun salutation. So the young man went away thinking this is a weird advice, but I'll honor it given where it came from. And when he came back, Cynthia Burgo writes this. She says, when he returned a month later, his eyes were glowing with faith. The creeds no longer made him angry. The reason, as the archbishop already knew, is that through the deep, rhythmic gestures of bowing and emptying himself, the man came to understand something that could not be found in his mind. It lived in his body. And connecting with his body, he reconnected with the wellspring of faith in his life. I share this with you because sometimes when we pursue wisdom, we think that we have to go at it with our mind to understand the concepts, when really the pursuit of wisdom is through our heart, through generosity and love and Christian service. I'm wondering about your experiences. Take a moment this week to think about a time in which you may have fasted for understanding, or the last time you participated in a ministry, or stewardship for you was an offering of yourself to God. What was that experience like? Did it yield to deeper wisdom and understanding? I'm going to post that question on our St. Andrew's network, and I hope you will share your experiences with me and one another. Blessings to you this week as you seek a deeper understanding of God's love in your life. Amen.